Shubhankar, so today is the first video we do on making of our Under the Sun book. The first time that we are talking on video, the first time we are talking about it on podcast.
Yeah.
Basically, I want to actually share the journey that we have undergone, not only in writing the book, but also when we say that we will self publish it, to share everything about self publishing that we have undergone.
Yeah, absolutely. We have been working a lot for the book project, for the kind of writings and stories you've been putting out in on your blog. I remember it was around 2 years back, September 2020, when we launched the blog, colonelsanjaypandey.com. And it's been such a big journey from launching the blog, putting out your first story, getting it reviewed, and then getting that first initial bit of audience love. And then now we're planning to launch the book on 27th September of this year.
Actually, the blog was a bit too late. I'll say about 30 years late. Yeah, internet wasn't there that time. But
Yeah.
yes, but definitely my wife was there. 87 when we got married. After about 10, 15 years in marriage, around 2000, I remember, she would always tell me, "Why don't you write? Why don't you write? You are such a great storyteller. Why don't you write?" And I always wondered, what do I write? Where do I write? Who will read? And it carried on. Every year, at least once or twice, this topic would come up. And I was very, very, very scared of writing. Not because I did not know how to write, but venturing into that field where whatever you are writing is going to be read by people, reviewed by people, and commented by people, particularly when there is absolutely no personal connection. And the people are very, very rude and at times very, very, what you call, acidic when they comment. So I was very scared of that.
I think even before you started writing the first story on your blog, the first venture you had in, I would say, writing your thoughts online was when you started a Twitter account. And I think that was back in 2015.
Yeah, there are two places where I wrote. There is this page called Colonel's Whiskers on Facebook, where I would
When
write my
did,
story.
but didn't you launch that much later?
No, no, no. It was launched around that time only. Just put that glass here before it goes commit
For
suicide.
for our viewers, I will just break the fourth wall. This is just an example of Colonel Pandey's OCD. He makes me do these things like he's scared that I will break a
Yeah,
glass
that was
around his
next to
house.
your elbow. It would have committed suicide.
And yet I have never broken a glass in your book
Okay.
that you know of.
So, the Facebook I started writing on my page.
Yeah. When was
And
this?
around that time only.
Okay.
Around same time. And I would not show it to anyone. It would just get posted on Facebook and then the comments started coming.
Okay.
Right? So that was very quietly I used to write there. But I was very, very shy.
Okay.
And Savita would keep on nudging me, "Why don't you write?" And finally, she was never to see this writing. 2017, she passed away. And another 2, 3 years, nothing happened really. You are one of those guys who probably last 4 years. I don't think there is anyone more than you who has nudged me into writing or recording these stories.
Yeah.
And you would always talk about 10 years back when I used to tell, when you were young, and with Nachiket and the family, we would sit on the bed and I would keep on rattling out story after story.
Yeah.
So, and that you wanted me to. But then in 2020, finally we decided. And probably that also I actually wanted to share with the listeners also. It wasn't an easy journey because after 2018, I kept on telling my both children, here, I want to write. Mama wanted me to write, I want to write, I want to write. And they got so sick of listening to this that one day I called a special telephone meeting. Okay, let us talk on this because I have to finally talk about writing.
Hmm.
That I think meeting lasted about 5 seconds.
Hmm.
Both the children said, "The day you write, we will talk about the meeting. We are hanging the phone." They both hung.
Yeah.
So I was quite insulted.
I think
Was
their
quite-
actual language was a bit
yeah, obviously. So I can't say that
something
here.
that you can't replicate here.
Obviously. So,
Yeah.
after they both gave me a hard cake, that was in around May 2020, when
Yeah.
we were in that lockdown.
Yeah.
And that is the time then that self-respect thing, I said, "No, yeah, not anymore."
No, I remember this conversation because then the next phone call you made was to me, ki, listen, this is a new task. Now we
Okay.
have to make a blog. So how do we make a blog? So
Then we
then the
are
journey
a
started.
journey of doing everything ourselves started.
Yeah, and then
How do you make a blog? How do you book a domain to? How do you from? I think we used WordPress and we made our own.
yeah, so learning WordPress from scratch, and then we decided that we would start writing on more and more on the blog as well as on Twitter as well as on LinkedIn, and exploring the all of these different medias. We started doing that very, very extensively, and I would say that we found a nice way out in the lockdown
Yeah,
to
so
keep
initially,
ourselves sane.
exactly. Initially, it was just a blog
Yeah.
on which I would write the true military tales that have happened
Yes.
in my life. And the type of reviews and comments I started getting, and then the phone calls I started getting from friends, people. First time in my life, I was convinced that no, there's something very, very different in my writing that is appealing to people.
Yeah, and I remember the first few stories that you wrote, I had no idea that you were a very that how good of a writer you were, and probably even you didn't, because
I didn't know.
you
Yeah.
we all know that you're a good storyteller, but the fact that that skill is transferable into writing was not something that anyone could have.
See, there is one thing I knew about my writing. I had exceptional writing skills. Military 25, 26 years.
Yeah.
So if there is a paper which I have written, oh yeah, it was always appreciated at every level. I was an exceptional writer.
Hmm.
Then we would have our evening get-togethers and parties and birthday parties and this that at home while I was in army, and then over drinks in the evening when the couples are sitting, and then I would start. And the only thing my wife noticed right from the time we married was that in a big gathering, in a big party, if someone had to find where Sanjay is,
Hmm.
she had a very simple answer. Just have a look at the hall, whichever place the biggest laughters can be heard, just go there. You'll always find him. And it was a fact. So probably she was seeing it from outside that I would was a great storyteller. I was exceptional in writing that
Yeah.
I knew. Then I had my military experience, and which was very, very varied, unlike a very, very normal tenure in army what people have.
Yeah.
I had very different,
Yeah.
and probably that's why she would say, "Why don't you write?"
Yeah,
But then
and
I
that
didn't know, okay, if I write, who will read it? So,
that's something that even I couldn't answer. Like, it was a big experiment for us also, because my sort of experience in blogging has been very SEO driven, and I know how to
absolutely.
make websites that will rank. But then that's not interesting stuff that I really want to write about.
But then when it came down to the blog, and when one of the
And
stories,
sorry to interject, but I remember the first time that we really got a taste of that, the thing that what you write is becoming very popular, was sometime around December of that year that we launched, December 2020. I think one of the stories you released, I think, I don't remember the name exactly, but it got like 30,000 views in
I,
the span of a week
I know
or a
the
span of two
story.
weeks.
I know the story. I remember the story.
Is it part of this book?
I have, yeah, it is part of this book. And that's why I'll not tell you the name. And that went viral. It went crazy. And 30,000, I don't know how many views it had and the type of comments.
Yeah.
And then the subscribers increased and everyone started coming to that. And then the comments, started
Yes.
increasing of writing skill and emotion, the way you And the only thing I remember, everyone would commonly talk about one thing, that when you write and when we read, we feel transported in that area that you are. We never feel that we are reading and it is of some land, Shangri-La, some unseen land, unknown land.
That's
We
true.
always feel that we are there.
That's true. Even I agree with that feedback, because I have always felt like the way you write makes me feel very vividly like I'm seeing it in front of my eyes. The area of Batalik where you are serving, or when you're going across the streets of Jalandhar Cant on your YSD, or whatever the stories, rest of the stories were, and how you do these intense field exercises in the plains of Madhya Pradesh. And so that visualization is not something that happens with every sort of story or author that you read, but that is your strong suit, which I was very happy, because it really means a lot in terms of how people will engage. And also, the other thing you managed to do is make people teary eyed with your fast forwards.
Exactly.
And I have started to
No,
feel a bit manipulated by that, because now there is a fast forward in every story.
this fast forward thing, it stuck me. I'll tell you why it stuck me. And just for the listeners, what the fast forward is, whenever I write a story, it always ends with fast forward.
Yeah.
I have never lost touch with life. I have never lost touch with people. Anyone who was with me 30 years back, I meet them today,
Mm.
right? Or something that has happened 30 years back. And there are things which I'm even feeling today. And then the truly emotional man that I am, the actual emotions that I underwent at that point where the story was at that time. And while writing, I would cry, I would be teary eyed, I would be alone, and I have never felt ashamed of it. That I find myself so intensely emotional that while writing, I would have teary eyes, and there are times I would cry. And when I would remember Savita, I would cry even more. I would leave writing. There are so many times I have called you कि यार वो कर रहा था छोड़ दिया मैंने
Yeah.
लिखना छोड़ दिया because I could not. I was crying. But the thing was that this thing started reflecting in writing.
Yeah, that's true.
When I started getting comments on my blog from people who know me, from people who don't know, always a line would appear, "Sir, your story made me cry. I was
Yeah.
teary eyed," and it. So now it started coming from random people,
Yeah.
people who are reading. That is how I started. Then I started realizing, yeah, storyteller I was. I used to make people laugh. I knew I had exceptional writing skills. Emotions, now I came to know I was able to catch. Then somehow we reached up to the blog. The blog became very successful in less than 2 months.
Yeah.
It became very,
Yeah.
very successful. And with you as the backbone to the entire thing, the technical support, the critic, I will say, who would read also the story and criticize and ask me to change. But then everything finally, I started realizing that even I started exploiting. I am a writer, I started exploiting emotions. So I would always write the fast forward in such a way that after you have enjoyed the entire story, I would aim to get a tear in your eye.
Hmm.
And I always thought that if after such a marvelous story, such a hilarious story, which you have enjoyed, if at the end in 5 lines, which I say fast forward and I can bring a tear in your eye, why shouldn't I do it?
Yeah. I think your that the structure of the stories that you follow, I won't call it manipulation per se, because it is real life. Like, you have lived these stories. Nothing is manufactured or artificial.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
It
They're not fiction, they're real.
Exactly. And so calling it manipulation would be wrong. I think you follow the structure. Tell me if I'm getting the name wrong. There is you. I think you've told me about this Marathi writer. Is he called Pula?
Pula Deshpande,
Pula Deshpande. Yeah.
P.L. Deshpande, and V.P. Kale, Vapu Kale.
Vapu Kade.
Yeah, these two storytellers.
They're the type of people that will take you through a story, and then at the end
Absolutely
they'll completely
brilliant.
change the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the story, and then it'll leave you dumbfounded.
Absolutely,
Sometimes
absolutely, yeah.
leave you
Yeah, to
emotional, stuff
somehow
like
even
that.
that, because I'm their fan,
Yeah,
so probably that also somehow crept into my writing.
yeah,
And it's only after a year of writing that I realized that it had almost about 91 articles. That's the time we decided to exploit our visual appeal along with our talking.
yeah.
So, because by that time we both had realized that we love to talk in front of the camera, we love to talk.
Actually, I don't think we realized anything as such. We just decided one day that let's try. After that was the first time we realized
Okay,
that
I'll tell
we
you. Okay.
somewhat are comfortable in front of the camera.
That was 11th of September.
Yeah.
My tickets were already booked for 2nd of October. So
Oh,
we
yeah.
had a total of 20 days.
Yeah.
And that day we decided to launch our YouTube channel, right?
Yeah.
And we had just 20 days, out of which I took away 5 days by saying that everything has to come to a halt on 27th. Being Savita's birthday, that was the day of launch. And my target was to make about 70 videos. We managed to make about 40-45 videos. And on the day of launch, if I am not wrong, we had put about 21 videos.
Yes, I that is the figure. 20-25 videos is the
That is
figure I
what we
have in
made
mind.
live.
Yes.
Rest all were lying. We shot and we were waiting for editing because we had our own strategy as to when to release them.
Yeah.
In that, there was this one category called Under the Sun,
Yes.
in which I started telling stories.
Yeah.
So one day, somehow, I took the camera, I sat in front of it and told a story. That story became so popular. Then I suddenly realized that my storytelling abilities, talking extempore in the camera, because it's my life, there is no fiction in that, and modulation of voice. And then I started getting calls from people that this is how you modulate your voice, and this is your voice. And there was a few lady friends who started saying, which of course my complexion does not permit me to go pink, but yes, I used to blush when they used to talk about my voice, and they would say, your voice is like this, and the type of the way they talk. Then I realized, yeah, आवाज भी अच्छी है. But just imagine, I'm 62 until 59, 60 years, 2020. I had known nothing about me. Except कि हाँ यार ये मैं कहानी बताता हूँ, मैं लिख सकता हूँ, मैं ये करता हूँ. And 2020, and we are at 2022. Today we are talking about self-publishing a book
Yeah.
based
Yeah,
on
it's
these
a,
stories.
yeah, I agree. It's a very, very big achievement considering how we started, where we started, and the kind of non-experience that we started from.
You have been living with me probably this life every day from the last 4 years.
Yeah.
That's the type of observation you have got.
Also, for the listeners, if you're listening on the podcast or whether you're watching this as a YouTube video, the other thing that I noticed about Colonel Pandey, you were quite underconfident when you started off, and that is something that is quite at odds with your overall personality. Having
I don't
been an
know
audio
why.
guy.
I don't know. I have been such a soldier. I have been such a absolutely, aggressive soldier in 25, 26 years. Absolutely no hesitation. I have no fear of public speaking. You make me stand in front of 1,000 people today. Yeah, absolutely. I have no problem.
Hmm.
Give me a topic, extempore. It is me. Even I got surprised that what stops me writing? What stops me speaking in front of the camera?
Yeah.
What stops me trying myself out? What you're saying is absolutely right. Underconfident, I think, is an understatement. I was much lower than that.
Yeah.
And suddenly, in the last 2 years, when the first kick I got in June 20, May 20,
Yeah.
the 5 second call, and somehow that got me going.
Talking about the fast forwards and just the structure that you follow, another thing that I really think is that makes it work. The style of writing you have is you are a 62-year-old man who is looking back on his life when he's writing. So it has a lot of impact when you talk about how things were 30 years back when you were doing all of these things, and like just comparing how life takes you and then talking about the state of things today. So when you talk about your men and how you served with them and how you worked for them and how you developed your character from your days in OTA, how you sort of put yourself on that path of leadership, how you transformed yourself into a soldier who uh, lived and died for his men, which is extremely commendable. And the stories reflect the actions. That's the best part for me. That each story doesn't try to pontificate that this is what a ideal army officer should be like. This is what the conduct should be like. This is the list of officer-like qualities that you have to follow. It doesn't even go into that formal sort of training that you get. It simply talks about this was the problem, this was the story, and this is how you went about living your life. And then that itself gives so many leadership lessons and life lessons. So I think that this set of
It's
stories to have a lot of impact for the young crowd, for old people, and also for people who are just looking to imbibe sort of how to develop your character and leadership.
bonding with your men in army is something I cannot explain. I have lived with them throughout my life and with my heart. I retired in 2006. This is 2022, 16th year running. I'm as close to men as possible. I still go to their homes at this age, 16 years after retirement. And it comes out. There are times when I don't even know how it has happened. And suddenly tears would start rolling because there is some memory associated with whatever you're seeing. You remember the day we went for this movie Top Gun?
Yeah, I want to talk about Top Gun.
Yeah, I know. I know. We were watching the Top Gun, and there was a time when tears started rolling down.
Yeah.
And for a long time, I couldn't talk about it. Movie was going on, but later on, then we were discussing. There is something in Top Gun, something that Tom Cruise does. He did that in Top Gun 1, he did that in 2. What it is like losing your colleague and living with that memory and loss for your life. This is what the way Tom Cruise has captured that. I'm telling you, Shubhankar, there are hardly any actors I have seen on screen, Hindi, Bollywood, Hollywood, anyone who can actually, make you cry because the entire public may not know that. But the person who has undergone that loss of a colleague and you live and he is dead and you are still living, he said, you in your life can never get over it.
Yeah.
And this is what those two stories, Batalik Fire in the Eyes, in this book is about.
Yeah.
So let me see Top Gun whenever in life. I must have seen the Top Gun 1, I think maybe more than 20 times. But when it comes to him losing Goose, this time handling his son,
Yeah.
I know exactly what emotion a person undergoes. He is acting. But for a person, living person who has lived that in his life, right?
Yeah.
I lost a 26-year-old young man, a captain, a bachelor who died
Mm.
at the post
Yeah.
in Batalik. I can never get over it. I meet his parents even today. He died in 2003. What is this? We are in 22, 19 years.
19 years.
I meet his parents. What do I talk to his parents?
I have no
Is
idea.
there anything we both can share? We can't share. I simply go sit with them. Maybe there are times when he start talking, his mother starts crying. I try to control myself. I keep quiet. After the visit, I come out. I sit in the car. The driver is driving, and I cry. This intensity of feeling, this intensity of emotion, one undergoes. How do I tell you?
Yeah.
I must talk, so I must have a video, or I must write.
Yeah.
When you say emotions, this is what actually reflects.
Yeah.
How I am able to exactly, you know, transpose that emotional feeling in writing
Yeah.
is something that even I'm surprised at.
But it's a great skill. And I think in Top Gun also they brought it out very nicely because like in the movie Maverick Tom Cruise's character, he references Goose a lot. So whenever he's going through a troubled situation, he says something like "Talk to me, Goose," and then
Yeah, yeah, he
and
says.
I that so all of those things that is these are that is the high point of storytelling, I would say, that comes across even in your writings, where you're able to convey that emotion to someone who's not gone through it in life.
Shubhankar, what I think we should do now is that there is so much to talk about the stories and this book.
But also, how handsome is Tom Cruise? I think we both came away from the movie with a big man crush at 59.
Yeah, 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 at
Yeah.
59. Yes, he's very, very smart. Very smart.
Hmm.
And okay, we were talking about this Under the Sun book, which we are releasing on 27 September this year,
Yeah.
22, and that we are self-publishing. One of the aim of this video or this podcast is also to tell the people कि what all we have undergone in publishing it ourselves,
Yeah.
so that you don't get fleeced or you get the courage to publish it yourself.
Yeah.
We'll just cover a couple of things here about the self-publishing that I have done from my side. You can tell your end of.
Rather, sir, looking at the time,
Uh,
I think we're almost at 30 minutes with this video. So why don't we break it into a couple of, let's say, a set of 2 or 3 videos
okay,
where
let's do
we
one thing. Let's do
speak
one thing.
about these things in the next ones.
Yeah. So what we do is we'll make another video. We will keep on making videos till the time we actually publish it. So we
Yeah.
are going to start from where the idea of writing book came
Yeah.
to today, where we have opened the pre-orders, and we do have couple of hundred pre-orders already with
Yes.
us, and we don't have any money.
Yes.
So we will talk up to this point, uh, how we have gone around the printers and how we have gone around the editors and how we have gone around the finding out what exactly a publisher does
Yeah.
and what are the commercials of it and what are the benefits of self-publishing. Probably in the second video, along with our gossip on the stories also.
Yeah, because the show is called Under the Sun. The book is called Under the Sun. Oh, by the way, before we end the video, why don't we tell the viewers and listeners why is the book called Under the Sun?
Under the Sun, my wife's name was Savita. So, which actually is a synonym of sun
Hmm.
in Hindi. So, under the sun, there are two things I want to convey, that anything which is under the celestial sun on the earth in our solar system, there is nothing that will escape the sun's eyes. And also, last 30 years of our marriage, that I was under Savita and her encouragement. So somehow this name struck me that okay, anyone who doesn't know, he thinks about the celestial sun. To me, every time I think about under the sun, it only gets me reminded of Savita.
That's such a meaningful title.
That's why it is releasing on 27th of September 2022. And I think we should stop here before I start getting teary eyed. Bye bye.
Right. Bye.
Bye.